Peace, everyone. I'm Tanisha, the host of Self Love Sanctuary, where I empower women to rise above burnout with self love and play. If you are into self discovery, self love, wellness, having fun, and mental health, then this is the podcast for you. Welcome. Welcome back, beautiful souls, to another episode of the Self Love Sanctuary podcast. Today, we are diving into a topic that's challenging and it's transformative, and that is the art of forgiveness. Forgiveness isn't just about letting go of the past. It's about freeing ourselves from the burdens that hold us back, drain our energy, and hindering our growth. In this episode, we'll explore what forgiveness truly means, why it's crucial for our mental and emotional health, and practical steps to start incorporating it into your daily life. When you hear the word forgiveness, what comes to mind? Maybe you think of forgiving someone who wronged you, or perhaps it's about making peace with your own mistakes. Whatever it is, I know that forgiveness is not a one time event. It's an art, a practice that can take time and patience. And sometimes within that impatience is where your burnout can build up. Forgiveness doesn't mean you're saying that what happened was okay or that you're minimizing the impact of your own actions or someone else's. It means choosing to release the emotional hold the situation has on you. It's about reclaiming your power and finding peace. And you're probably like, wow, minimizing the impact of my own actions. But remember, we are responsible for only us. So if we are choosing to continue to experience stress, to allow a situation to happen, then we are the cause. And we have to be able to really own up to that and take accountability. And that is part of the work. So let's talk about why forgiveness is essential. When we hold on to anger, resentment, or guilt, our body holds on to that state of stress. This constant tension can lead to physical symptoms. It affects our emotional well being and can keep us stuck and not experiencing life. Maybe we're missing out on joy and connection. Studies show that people who practice forgiveness tend to have lower stress, better heart health, and overall improved well being. Forgiveness helps take back control of your emotional state. And here on this podcast, I always like to bring it back to me and how I have experienced forgiveness. And it's something that is a practice. Learning that I am the co creator with God and I have free will to choose whether something gives me pleasure, annoys me, makes me sad, makes me angry, is a tough practice to continuously work on because this is not something that you master really quickly. I also think that it's ongoing in our life. And learning that I have to forgive these feelings within me to feel better has sucked at times. There have been so many times where people in business, for example, have made me so angry. And I'm holding on to this anger, and I'm like, no, they wronged me. But the truth is, I allowed that situation to happen. And I'm holding on to it, and they're probably out there living their lives. And I'm stressing, and I'm annoyed that things aren't going the way I want them to go. And I had to come to a point, more realization that I can't live my life like that because I'm getting gray hairs, y'all. I'm losing my mind and I'm waking up and I'm choosing violence. And who is that helping? No one. I have to learn that in this moment, I'm choosing to let go. And I'm not saying don't fight for the things you believe in, because there's a difference. When you're passionate about something and you know in your heart that it's right, then I say speak up, but do it with compassion and love. And those are things that I have struggled with because my tongue can be a mighty sword, and it's about how you use it, practicing discernment, speaking with force yet with love. And so I've been practicing forgiveness of how I have spoken to people, of how I've overreacted, of how I felt hurt and anger and let things happen. And I also gave the person forgiveness, or the people in my life who have caused or been a catalyst to some things I've experienced. But everything is a life is a lesson. And so it's learning those lessons. Forgiving yourself for not learning the lesson the first time, that's something I had to do, because there are things that kept coming up in my life, the same type of situations with people, the same type of situations in business. It's like, why? Why am I going through this again? But I didn't learn. I didn't learn that I had to give Nisha love. I had to forgive the hurt. I had to forgive the pain. I had to forgive myself for not knowing any better at that time. I had to surrender to God to forgive the mistakes. Sometimes you got to go through something more than once to get it, because you weren't ready the first time. And now a more evolved you is ready to listen. Now you're ready to do the self reflection work. That other version of you wasn't ready and didn't make the time to love on themselves, to have the awareness. And that is part of it all. If we don't know better, we can't do better. And I'm coming into these seasons of, oh, I see why I do X, Y, and Z. I see why I want to yell, I want to scream. And it comes from our inner child, not feeling heard, not feeling seen. And it just always comes back up in these different levels with people. Life is like a video game, is what I'm learning. If anybody ever played Mario, like you get to one level and you beat it and you're like, yeah, I accomplished this, like I'm good. But then the next level is a little bit more challenging. And that's how it's been. And, when you have so many years of not learning the art of forgiveness, it's a lot of things that you've been suppressing. And I have a lot of feelings that have been coming up. So acknowledging your feelings, I'd say, is one of the biggest steps and the first step in forgiving yourself. You got to recognize them. Are you angry, hurt, disappointed? It's okay to feel those emotions. Give yourself permission to process them without judgment. When I went away to Mexico for a solo trip, I had the notion to go to this church that I saw on TikTok. And I haven't been inside of a church over 10 years. I'm more spiritual than religious. But it looked really nice because it wasn't your typical style church. It was in the jungle, Cancun, Mexico. And it just aesthetically, it looked really nice. And I love nature. So I decided to go. And when I'm there, I'm walking through, seeing people's petitions, and I felt out of place. And I was judging myself for feeling like a fraud, for going back to the church after not being in one. And I was raised Catholic. And I'm noticing my thoughts. I'm like, I shouldn't be here. And I don't feel connected here either. And that's something to notice. But I continue to keep going. I'm walking through the place because it's pretty big. And then, I see people walking in and out, and predominantly everybody is um, Mexican there. For the most part, I was probably the only black person there, because it's a place where the locals go. And I wanted a local experience. So I'm walking around and I stumbled upon this room, and there's no one else in there. I go in, I take a seat on the pupil, and I burst out in tears. And I'm just overwhelmed with all these emotions. And I had to choose in that moment to allow myself to cry it out. I heard people passing by, and the first couple of seconds, I'll keep it real, I was like, no, not here, not now. No, and I'm learning that it doesn't work like that. I had a lot of pain from a past person who I was dating. I had a lot of hurt from the things that weren't going well in my business. Even being in a different country for the first time and adapting to a different culture. It was a lot that was hitting me at one time. And I allowed it. I allowed all that pain to come up. Even the pain of judging myself for being in this setting. This wasn't my typical altar that I like to do my work in. So it was almost like a full circle moment of, being in the church and having my breakdown, because that's truly what it was. I can't tell you how long I was crying, but I know it was long. And it was just speaking to God and having a conversation with Him about, how sorry I am and forgiving my mistakes and, forgiving how I've treated people and how I've treated myself and how I want in this moment to learn more compassion, more self love, also detachment from outcomes. And it was, in the moment, hurtful. But as I look back more and more, it was so beautiful to have that time. And now I'm not going to sit here and say I'll be back in the church, but I'm grateful for the experience that anywhere I am, I'm connected. Even when I think I'm not, I'm in tune. And so allowing myself that moment was grace. That was love. That was forgiving myself, which leads me to the next thing of practicing that empathy. It's the hardest, but it's crucial to understand why we act the way we act, why people act the way they do. Again, it doesn't mean that we excuse the behavior, but it helps put things into perspective, because sometimes people hurt others because they're hurting themselves. I know for me, when I don't feel seen and heard, I lash out. And so it's understanding that my inner child is still longing for love, and I'm still working on giving that to her and practicing that empathy. Detachment or releasing expectations can be a huge barrier to forgiveness. Expecting someone else to apologize when you get in a fight. True forgiveness is about letting go, even if you don't get the closure that you thought you needed. And that can be really hard. But I would ask the question as to, why are you doing this? Are you doing this for them, or are you doing this for you? And if the work is for us to evolve and become better people, then it should be for us. And so you have to forgive yourself, which could be seen as the last step. Don't hold on to that regret. Don't hold on to the grudge. You have to give yourself the same compassion you would want to give to your friends. You're human. We make mistakes. It's part of our growth. It's part of this life that we're living. You can either live every day like it's doomsday, you're going to continue to live life the same way, or you take these moments, be grateful for them, and try to rewrite your story, because you're doing this for you, you're doing this for your lineage, and it's so beautiful when you have these aha moments of like, oh, I see why I had that breakdown, and now my eyes are open. And that's how I felt, coming back to the States after that trip. There was a lot of clarity, and I started doing a lot more mindfulness work. So I mentioned this so many times, but it's so important. Journaling, writing down your thoughts, emotions, and the reasons why you want to forgive. Put your feelings on paper can help you understand them more clearly and create space for that release. And I'll even take it a step further. You can write it down and then burn it. Fire, the element of fire, so powerful. When you're forgiving yourself and you really want to let something go, burn, baby, burn. Watch it burn. Visualize that you're seeing it, and you're just releasing this all out of your system. And it's going to take some time. You're going to have to do this a couple of times depending on what you have to release. But I have found that very supportive. Meditation and visualization, spending a few minutes in quiet meditation. Visualize yourself letting go of the resentment. You can even read what you were journaling before you light it on fire and visualize that. And then see yourself setting it free, almost like a balloon going into the sky. Each breath, imagine feeling lighter and more at peace. I love my affirmations. So we can say things like, I choose to let go of what no longer serves me. I let go and I let God. Forgiveness brings me peace. I bring myself safety because I choose to love myself. Family, this this is a heavy topic today. Even me just thinking back of everything that I've been going through with forgiveness, it's a lot. But it's just Important to note that forgiveness is a journey, it's not a destination. Some days you'll feel free from the past and you're like, yes, I got it. And other days you're going to get triggered. And those old feelings, they'll resurface. And that's okay. Be patient. Celebrate each milestone. I love writing in my phone my notes, every little thing that I recognize a connection and what I did for that connection. So for me at the church, I wrote that down. I was like, I'm so proud of myself for giving myself this space. And I came home, I showered because water is very cleansing. And I just sat there and I was proud that I allowed the emotions to come up. And now I have that in my note for months later where if I'm not letting myself release, I'm like, you know what, but I did it in this moment. That's all it is. Celebrate your wins. You know? And also, if you're looking for forgiveness with other people, you don't have to reconcile with everyone who's hurt you. We're just looking to rewrite your story. So before we wrap up, I just want to leave you with forgiveness is an act of courage. It takes strength to release the past and open yourself up to healing, but it's a decision that can transform your life in ways that you may not have even imagined. I appreciate you, family. I love you. Give yourself a big hug for showing up, for listening to this episode, and just know that I'm here with you on this ride. So I want to thank you for joining me in this episode. If today's conversation resonated with you, share it with a friend, subscribe, or leave a review. Your support helps more women find the tools they need to live empowered and fulfilled lives. So until the next time, take a deep breath, let go, and nurture your sanctuary of self love. Peace.